Hi, my name is Jonathan Regan, also known as New Questions. This is a blockchain education analysis video on Ethereum, a digital token that came out quite a long time ago, number 2 in the world, supposedly. Volume, a lot of interest. We're going to talk about what makes Ethereum so special and why I recommend you not go anywhere near it in terms of trying to make money trading Ethereum. Unfortunately, Ethereum's been on a pretty sustained, exhausting downtrend for about 18 months now. We're going to have a look at the charts. And I would say that this kind of solidifies the idea that the price doesn't need to be coupled with the quality of the digital token that it represents. There's a certain decoupling there. We're going to look at the Ethereum price in relation to the public sentiment and the usefulness of the actual digital token itself and the Ethereum blockchain, and we're going to realize that there's no real correlation there. And that's something that you need to understand as a trader. If you're an investor, I don't know what to say to you other than you're a loser. I'm afraid to say you're going to lose money with Ethereum, and even those people who bought Ethereum a long time ago have probably lost a tremendous amount of money if they've just simply held recently. Let's have a look. Okay, so what we see here is a positive looking coin. Yeah, okay, you've got some sort of trend where this is Ethereum versus Bitcoin on the 45-minute, and we can see there's a sort of a trend channel coming up through here. Let's change that to blue. Let's clone that out, and you know, you can potentially have the startings of a new uptrend here. Like, that looks really nice. A series of higher highs here, definitely, certainly, and we've got a series of higher lows starting to find some support. Would I say this is a great investment? No, I wouldn't actually. And that's because we're looking at a short-term period of time. And I'm looking at sort of a 22-day period of time. And in that time, if you had an incredibly good luck and you got in really early and you timed your exit perfectly, you're looking at 36% in 12 days. Obviously, lovely if you got 36%, even more if you used margin leverage and other people's money to essentially trade at even a higher profit. But the reality is, this particular 22-day period of time doesn't represent what Ethereum is, and certainly doesn't represent what an investor's mindset is in relation to their profits over time. The unfortunate thing is, as soon as we start using longer candles, we realize that this little particular period of time, 22 days, is really not very much. It's a spit in the bucket. You can see that we've had a sustained downtrend. We might have enjoyed this kind of 22-day period, but in reality, over the last 85 days, Ethereum lost 50% of its value. 50% in less than 3 months. So how do you know that that's going to happen? Well, obviously, as a member of Blockchain Education, we'll teach you exactly how to identify what's going up and what's going down. And you know, from this chart, it seems pretty obvious. We've got the 200 moving average. We're using 4-hour candles here. We've got these red bands, and obviously things are pretty easy. You just don't buy and hold when it's red. You only buy and hold when it turns green. Pretty simple, right? But in the grander scheme of things, you've got to ask yourself a question. What happens if I'm kind of a trader who sort of believes, I believe in Ethereum. I believe in the long-term goals of the team. I believe in the Ethereum alliance with associate members such as the mighty Intel, and even more insane, Microsoft, and we've got LG, we've got some of the world's best banks and some of the world's best investment companies, and this is, look, surely all of these companies can't be wrong. Can they? Well, just because they're actually developing stuff for Ethereum using the Ethereum blockchain doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested in losing money as an investor in owning large quantities of the digital token. And the other thing that always kind of sets me off is that if you assume that people made a lot of money in 2017 with Ethereum and they actually managed to stick some of that money in the bank, wouldn't it make more sense after a sustained downtrend for them to spend a bit of money on the marketing side of things to try and imply a future uptrend was coming? essentially they're taking previous winnings and they're putting it into press releases and positive news and trying to spin the sentiment in the market to try and give us the impression that, yeah, you know what, Ethereum's about to go back up. It's bottomed out. It's going to go back up to all-time highs. And I see that, I mean, I just type in Ethereum into Google and I hear it is a clear path for Ethereum. We expect further upsides. We're going to attract investors. There's a nice little positive little box over here by Google. You got Ethereum, look at the price chart, and then everything's all positive. And if you dive into some of these stories, everybody's talking about how Ethereum's going to go through the roof and it's made all these amazing changes lately, and all the fundamental news and the sentiment's supposed to make you realize that, look, this 29% move in less than 20 days, this is the greatest thing not really. The truth is, if you look closely, we just made a lower high. This is actually the high point. The body close up here. This is a lower high, and this is a lower high. I mean, is the next lower high down here on the 50 moving average? Probably. And am I supposed to be all that excited about a coin that on the daily looks like this? I mean, look at this for a sustained downtrend from up here all the way down, 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 down. Slight recovery to the top of the bands and then down into the 50. Okay, I'm not all that impressed. I might be impressed if it manages to break over the 200-day moving average, but the truth of the matter is that Ethereum has been on a much more insane downtrend, and we're supposed to feel confident about this particular little bit here, right? We're supposed to be excited about all the stuff that's going on with the Ethereum lines. We're supposed to be getting back in like everybody, it's amazing. Well, yeah, I don't know. Still looks pretty bleak to me. Now, when Ethereum was listed on Binance, we had a sustained downtrend literally from the day it was listed. You can see we dropped right down into here. We had an explosive move back, a massive dump, a move back, and a dump. And I mean, at the end of the day, you can see when you should have bought. You should have bought in green bands down sort of in these sort of zones, and just throw up a couple of others. And diminishing returns, I think, at the end of the day, and you might want to think about sort of dumping in these kind of zones, going short, and then maybe going short sort of in this area, and maybe this area, and maybe sort of, I don't know, this area. And if you're really lucky, you might end up sort of making money like this. You get money down, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still short, right? I mean, in hindsight, it's easy. A lot of people got caught up in some of the hype when they sort of saw this sort of move and it came back into this zone, a 618 retrace, and then exploding. And a lot of people were buying Ethereum right in this zone. They essentially got tricked. They got tricked into buying large quantities in this area here. And the truth is, it's just been declining ever since. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, just because a coin has a really impressive marketing team, they have great partnerships, they're doing good things with blockchain technology, and they seem to be revolutionizing the way that this coin interacts with other coins, providing some sort of base blockchain for other projects to sit on, powering US dollar tether. And even though they're doing partnerships with companies like Microsoft and Intel and all that sort of stuff, that doesn't necessarily mean that the value of the digital token is just expressly going to go up. And that's the problem that I have with this idea that you can use fundamentals and sentiment analysis in the crypto markets. The truth is, no matter how great the team and the product is and the services that are coming out and the partnerships and the future of the coin, the reality is the actual price of the digital token only really matters to traders. And they're the ones who are going to be buying and selling. And after Bitcoin ended up getting into a situation where people started using margin leverage trading, we have like derivatives, options, futures, all this sort of stuff, and Ethereum came along and sort of started replicating all that sort of stuff. Well, then you get even larger manipulation in the market. Some people will say, oh, Ethereum's actually artificially suppressed in price because it needs to be kept low so that people can use it as a viable blockchain to run other projects on it. I'm just like, you know what, you guys who are into fundamental news and fundamental decision making and sentiment analysis, you can just keep all of your random news. I got to tell you guys, if this here represents a couple of days of positive news, I have heard positive news here and here and here and here and here. I heard a lot here and here and here and here and here and here and here. You get the point. I mean, sure, you're going to be positive all the way down simply because you're losing money all the way. Anybody who got out up in this sort of area, obviously genius. That kind of makes me think, you know, what was it that happened to Ethereum? Let's look at 600 days ago. What happened 600 days ago, guys? I mean, if people essentially left Ethereum being such an impressive digital token, where did the value go? Did it go into Bitcoin? Don't think so. Did it go somewhere else? I mean, why did Ethereum essentially lose value against Bitcoin? Remember, we're looking at Ethereum, Bitcoin on the daily at Binance. Where did the value go? Well, I posit that it went, well, some of it, but I would say a lot of it went into BNB, Binance's token. Let's go and have a look at what happened to Binance's token about 600 days ago. Let's just go, yeah, about the same time that Ethereum started its almighty descent, losing money for 600 days in a row. Look what happened to Binance. Look, remember, we're 600 days back. So from about this point onwards, we had an extraordinary move by BNB. Higher high, higher high, come down here, set a new higher low, another higher high, and then now we're coming back. We're obviously retracing an awful lot, but the truth of the matter is, this is why trading is superior to investing. If you're an investor for the last 600 days, you've essentially lost money believing and holding and praying and hoping that Ethereum increases in value versus Bitcoin. But a trader is somebody who realizes that you don't just blindly invest and hope for the best. You invest in an uptrend, and as soon as you see the markers for a downtrend, you get out of that digital token and you get into something else that's looking a little bit more positive. And as we can see here, BNB at Binance on the daily in the same period of time, we're going to go back 600 days. Remember, Ethereum started a giant downtrend in the last 600 days, whereas as we can see here, Binance has basically started, the Binance coin has basically started a giant uptrend. We had a nice little opportunity to pick up some more. We've got a huge triple algorithm blitz signal here. Fantastic. Great for the community. And then we had essentially what looks to be a massive sustained downtrend over the last couple of months. I think this particular area here might have actually been a sort of a bit of manipulation on behalf of Binance, the creators, and those who issue the coin. I think what was actually happening was that the Binance coin was actually becoming too valuable, and people believed so much in it that they were buying and holding it. And I think Binance were like, you know what, I want people to use this coin. I want them to pay for trading. I want them to have a nice liquid fluid movement across our exchange. I want it to be used for dust and all that sort of stuff. And essentially, I think what was happening was that Binance was kind of sick and tired of people just holding onto it and reducing the supply. And I think they might have dumped some of BNB into the market. And essentially, we see this sort of sustained downtrend over the last, what are we talking about? The last 100 days. Now, incidentally, we've seen Bitcoin do really great things over that same sort of period of time, so it only makes sense that Binance coin would go down. Let's just go back once again and look at Ethereum in that 600-day window. This blue section here can show you that 600 days ago we were up here, and we essentially are now down here. Truth is, in that period of time, we have fallen the best part of 81%. 81%, guys. That's not anything to be excited about. This concept that you hold on, hodl, all that rubbish, complete and utter horse crap. You don't want to have anything to do with a coin that loses 80% of its value, no matter how patient you are. The truth of the matter is, this is not looking great at all. Let's go out to a 3-day, let's go all the way out to a weekly chart and have a look. It's just a mess, isn't it? Let's maybe go back to a 3-day, probably give us a bit more sort of granularity here. So obviously this section is dead obvious. You don't want to be in this coin at all. I mean, we've got nothing but sort of red DI here. Whoop, let's try that again. Red DI, horrible trend the whole time. You want to be shorting this thing. You want to be getting the hell away from this thing. You certainly don't want to be considering it as an investment. Now, I know some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, Jonathan, come on, man, like nobody's investing in Ethereum. Nobody would be that stupid, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people are that stupid. A lot of people put a lot of money into Ethereum, even just a couple of months ago, and a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago, a year and a half ago, 600 days ago was essentially the peak versus Bitcoin. So if you pretty much put money into Bitcoin in that 600 days, you did okay, you stabilized a little bit. But if you put it into Ethereum, you've been a loser ever since. Like, I mean, that's pretty much a 600-day downtrend. And like I said, there's a lot of people in the EEA, the Alliance, and a lot of people on the internet, and a lot of people, you know, that will put out press releases and all that sort of information, who'd love you to think that this sort of action is you know 6 to 12 months away. We're going to have nothing but an uptrend. I just think you should be really careful about that sort of stuff. That's one of the reasons why the analysts, myself, the CEO, and the tech team have these algorithms running, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who says what. What really matters is what the traders do, not the investors, what the traders are doing. And I think this kind of points out a glaring fact in the industry that people aren't really prepared to acknowledge, and that is that the quality of the digital token that you're actually supposedly investing in doesn't really have anything to do with the price. At the end of the day, Ethereum is probably one of the most advanced digital tokens out there, with smart contracts and an extraordinary use case scenario where, you know, the majority of altcoins, including US dollar Tether, a digital token, they're running on the Ethereum blockchain. They're literally powered by Ethereum. And then there's the Alliance, and then you got the press release, the positivity, all that sort of positive technology movement, how it's changing the world. And at the end of the day, the price has just gone. The price has gone from 1,400 American dollars, probably one of the max, down to sort of, we've seen it go as low as $76. So tremendous. And as I said, looking at sort of an 80 to 90% decline in value. I guess the point for this video is that don't get sucked up in the sentiment. Think about the long term. Don't just necessarily think that if you hold on, these troubled times will pass. Don't get sucked into this hodl mentality where you just hold on as an investor and think you're doing the right thing, and it just means that you just need to be a little bit more patient. That doesn't imply in crypto you can lose 80% in as little as a couple of months. What you really want to be doing is looking for uptrending coins. And I showed the stark comparison between Binance Coin and Ethereum over roughly the same sort of time frame. Now you can see, obviously, like I suggested, Binance Coin not doing so great as of late. This section here is obviously a bit of a downtrend, but overall, if you got into Binance Coin at the beginning and you sold out a couple of months ago, you're looking at 12,000%. Some people will wonder, well, you know, I've missed out on crypto. It's too late. Well, if I was to say to you that it was only a little over 4 or 5 months ago that Binance Coin hit its all-time high and it went 12,000%, most people wouldn't expect this particular year, 6 months ago, that you would have been in. And I mean, the truth of the matter is, if you got in here, like so many of our members did, as it crossed over the 200 moving average, we're looking at a 200% in less than 3 months. And compare that to Ethereum, where I think it lost close to 60 to 70% in the same period of time. Let's pull up XRP, commonly known as Ripple. Ripple is another one of these coins where we see all sorts of crazy manipulation going on, ridiculous super spike here. And once again, we see a sustained downtrend here. We're down 65% in the last 243 days. But when we stretch it out a little bit, we see this absolutely absurd uptrend as it was soon listed on Binance Coin, coming down, and then this explosive move up, and then a sort of a downtrend. Now, if I go into the 4 hour, a lot of people have been staying away from Ripple for obvious reasons, because it's easy to see that the value has been declining for such a long period of time. I can just keep on stretching this, and we're just going to get nothing but negativity here the whole way down. So explosive moves here, and these indicators by the algorithm are not necessarily entries on a chart like this, because inside the system we have far more sophisticated stuff. This is the sort of stuff that I'm showing to the public where we get a rapid crossover of the 200 moving average. So although this one here was nice, I still wouldn't recommend anybody getting into into Ripple in terms of an actual investment. Like, look what we're talking here. So down 70% in the last 269 days. Okay, sure, we've had a little bit of an uptrend recently. Do I think that that's actually worthy of celebration? Oh, I don't think so. I mean, look, here's a high and this is a lower high. I mean, if I saw a series of higher highs and we were suddenly, you know, in a pretty decent uptrend, then I'd be far more excited. Truth of the matter is, if you're an investor in Ripple, you're a loser. You're losing all the way down. I mean, I hate to say it, it's nothing personal, but you're losing. And the reality is, and the stark reality is, the vast majority of cryptocurrencies are losing value against Bitcoin and have been consistently for months, if not years. And if you're just holding on and holding on and holding on with this idea that at some point it's all going to swing back up, then actually that's a really poor way to actually consolidate and actually make any sort of money. You really need to be nimble on your feet and you need to move between coins. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you need to trade every day, although the guys in blockchain education who are doing that are probably making the most money. But certainly if you stick to a time frame like a 4-hour time frame, you certainly want to be looking at the charts at least 4 or 5 times a month and making sort of macro decisions on getting in and out. And I've got to say, with so much red on these charts, you really got to avoid it. Now, what sort of coins are going up? I'm just totally talking out of my hat here. I have a feeling Link's been doing pretty well. I know that we've been calling it recently. I guess its new uptrend is a little bit more sustained than Ripple and Ethereum, probably lasting twice as long. I know that BAT has had a really rough run of late, very confusing. Once again, you see this sort of solid downtrend. I think we had Ravencoin running something like 1800% or something at some point, another huge sustained downtrend. And now if we look at Bitcoin versus US dollar Tether, yet another digital token, we saw recently that the uptrend came to an end, that the descending triangle basically broke. We went straight through the bottom of that and we've come down into this sort of low $8,000 level. Now, if you're an investor and you got into Bitcoin, let's say a couple of years ago, let's go back in time. Let's just imagine that you got in sort of in this zone here at the sort of the $3,000 mark back in 2017. So this is kind of coming to the end of 2017. If you got in here and you managed to get out at the $20,000 top, then good for you. There was a lot of people in chat saying a lot of stuff at that top. I was telling everybody to sell. A lot of our members sold and made a fortune. Some of them just held and held and held. Some of them traded all the way down. We had a lot of this, and then we had this huge dump into this sort of ground area. Was Bitcoin a good investment? Well, I guess you could argue that if you bought Bitcoin sort of anywhere in this area, potentially it was a good investment. You're looking at anywhere between sort of 300% if you manage to get your buy and your sells perfect, anywhere between that and let's say, I don't know, what are you, 23% in a period of time. So we're looking at like maybe 600 days. Let's go back in time again here. 600 days. It was also a sustained downtrend from about here onwards. I mean, truth of the matter is, if you bought it 600 days ago, you're probably sitting here, and we're currently sitting here. So your buy and your hold was probably next to nothing. You're looking at maybe 14% in 600 days. So if you bought in this area here and you were just simply an investor, if you bought here or here or here or here, and you simply didn't do anything, you didn't trade, even if you bought it here, now look where we are again, we're still sitting in this zone. You're literally breaking even for 600 days in a row. That's not what I consider a good money-making opportunity. It's much better to trade than invest in this industry. That's what blockchain education was created for. And I think the more you get that through your head and the more you realize that you need to be a little bit nimble and you need to move your value from one coin to another, the more money you can make. Because while that was doing literally nothing for 600 days, the guys in our community were making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars trading the ups and downs of all different varieties of cryptocurrencies that are moving in and against Ethereum, US dollar Tether, and Bitcoin. So that's kind of my let's say, my expose, my sort of analysis on sentiment and fundamental news driven analysis versus the reality of what the markets are actually doing, what the traders are actually doing, where the value is really moving. Hope that gives you an idea. If you like this content, then like, subscribe, share it, leave a comment. I know everybody got burned. If you were in this and you got in and you've lost money, then I think that the best way to get out of it is to trade your way out of it. We've had guys come into our community who, unfortunately, they began as investors. And what ended up happening was they lose 60, 70, 80%. They lost it in a few months. And then they came to us and said, you know, my portfolio value is down 80%. What the hell do I do? And we've helped them get back to break even and most of the time get ahead of themselves. So they're sort of fighting back. They've swapped the investment lifestyle for the trading lifestyle, and that's actually meant that they've increased their chances of getting back. They own a lot more Ethereum now, or a lot more Bitcoin now than they ever did before. And the assumption is that if the prices do go back to the all-time high, that's when they'll really start cashing in. All right, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that sort of stuff. Otherwise, if you really want to take it to the next level, you think about joining Blockchain Education. We're running a couple of discounts right now, a huge discount actually, and a 7-day refund policy. I think you'll really love the sort of analysis and the information inside the private chat system, the private training area, and this sort of information. This is easy for us. We're doing all sorts of interesting things with crypto, and some of the big coins like Ethereum and Bitcoin, they're not even on our radar. We're actually more interested in doing triple digits every week sort of thing. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.